study predicts 45% of whammons will be single by current year +7. Single men are lonely while single whammons are empowered. So this is one of those articles, like it's the usual stuff I cover, except this one seems to be from an author that somehow understands the issue, which isn't, this is very rare, it is. This isn't common. See, there's a reason that these are in quotes. Yup, you read that right. It's estimated that 45% of whammons ages 25 to 44 will be single by current year +7. But how many of them will be single mothers? According to a study by Morgan Stanley. With the modern dating market, nearly half of whammons in their childbearing years will be without a male counterpart. There are a few reasons for this prediction. One, whammons aren't getting married young anymore, which is probably the biggest mistake they make, by the way. Now, men can afford to delay. Yeah, men can afford to chase their career early and then go for a relationship. Women have to do it the other way around. Start a family first, pop out a few kids and raise them first, then get started on your job. If you do it the other way around, it's going to be too late. And we have so many other options for what to do with our lives that getting married is no longer the default option. We're focused on our careers, going to grad school, traveling, our friends and extended social circles, taking our time to find the right guy. Yeah, no, cue the meme of that skeleton sitting on the park bench, like still waiting for Mr. Right. Now, 2, we aren't having babies like we used to. With more options for birth control than ever before and somewhat reliable treatments for infertility, the pressure to have kids within a certain time frame just isn't there anymore. Well, that's, again, in the parentheses, somewhat reliable treatments for infertility. So they sleep around, they have multiple abortions. Dude, I've known women like this, by the way. When they were young, when they could have had kids, they had abortions instead. And then at the time when they finally want to have kids, they can't. And then they're just always stuck thinking, like, I had all those opportunities that I threw away. And with that pressure gone, so is the urgency to get married for the sake of starting a family. Again, making a big mistake. Yeah, women can't delay this stuff. Yeah, so many whammons are single, that is unmarried, and will remain this way for the foreseeable future. Now, we are told that to be a single whammons is to be empowered. If I had a penny every time I've heard, she's a strong, independent whammon who don't need no man. She can take care of everything herself. She makes her own money, drives her own car, pays her own rent. Basic things that any functional adult should be able to do, but I digress. Yeah, very good point. She can do it all in her own little world of man-free bliss. And without a man, she doesn't have to deal with his implicit misogynies. She doesn't have to cook, clean, care for an overgrown man-child. She doesn't have to compromise or have anyone complain about what she wears or the pictures she posts online. She can have as many girls' trips and hot girl summers as her heart desires. The blissfulness of single life. But if a man is single, he's lonely. Yeah, this is a funny double standard, isn't it? Yeah, men have to be miserable if they're single. Yeah, that's right. Women, though, now what I don't understand, if women are better off single, according to feminazi logic, and men are lonely and sad and pathetic, and they need a woman in their life, aren't these two things mutually exclusive? Now, even if men really were miserable single, wouldn't you be advocating for more single women? But that by default leads to more single men. The more single women, the more single men. Unless we're talking about polygamous relationships, that'll be about the only way to fix this. Now, men can pay for a massage. That's why they're fighting so hard to shut down those massage parlors. They don't want men to have an outlet. Yeah, whammons, though, they're fine. Yeah, because, he's clearly miserable and sexless, not by choice. Yeah, clearly. There's even a Reddit term for it. Incel, a man who is involuntarily celibate. But women can't be incels, by the way. No, that's only a man's problem. But that's why we retermed it though. Like they called it femcel. That works too. I'm fine with that. Now, the idea here is that all men would want a girlfriend or at least a female partner if they could have one. The never-ending rhetoric is that married men are happier, live longer, and benefit tremendously from having a live-in maid, wife. Young people are socially conditioned to believe that single men are one of two things. One, super attractive top 20%ers who don't need to settle down with one woman to have plentiful sex, attention, and admiration from whammons. Or two, everyone else. Average to unimpressive men who don't know how to talk to whammons and couldn't get a date if they tried. Are those really the only two options? I mean, if the media says so, it must be true. So double standards. This is nothing new. There are probably some women and men who fall into these categories, but it's ridiculous to pretend that that's everyone. Oh, and for the women who fall into their categories, like they're actually enjoying being single, they're strong and empowered. Once they hit the wall, once the baby rabies kicks in, that's over. You know, most of the single whammons I know don't feel particularly empowered in their singleness. In fact, most of them are actively dating or looking for Mr. Right. Oh, that must just be the internalized misogyny. Most single men I know aren't lonely or wondering when a woman will finally look their way. They're just going about their lives, working, going to school, traveling, participating in their hobbies, trying to build the life they want. That's exactly what I'm doing. So at least there's one case of that being true. No, guy or girl, the healthiest attitude is somewhere in the middle. No, it depends on the individual. Some people are just better off and happier alone. Others aren't. Now, I'm single and empowered and don't need anyone. Certainly not a cis white man. Does not reflect most whammons. I'm single and lonely and just wish any woman would look my way so I can finally get laid. Does not reflect most men. Both true. To lump all men and whammons in these categories is unfair and perpetuates stereotype that just isn't true for most. But it is to some of our advantage, though, to let these stereotypes perpetuate, though. Like, look at MGTOW, for example. If that attitude spread to most men, society would collapse. So, hey, if other men want to keep, pulling or picking up the slack, go ahead, man, be my guest. Now, neither of these attitudes is healthy nor aspirational. Aspirational, yeah. I guess if you're looking at these two attitudes, you might be right. Now, is there a problem with 45% of whammons being single? Now, this is where we get to the real question. On an individual level, no, just like with MGTOW. But on a societal level, perhaps. I would say definitely, just like with MGTOW. The trends like these are symptoms of a bigger issue. Our social fabric is falling apart. Thank you. You figured it out. So where the nuclear family used to make up the fabric of society, the separation of sex from commitment and babies has led to a sentiment of selfishness. Our individual happiness has become the most important thing in each of our lives. Now, you want to know the real reason for this? Like back in the day, you couldn't survive on your own. Everybody needed other people. And I know, like, most society, right? Like, obviously, none of us can survive on our own. But I meant, like, more directly. People in general couldn't like 100, 200 years ago, there weren't that many people who could live on their own. You had to live with your family. You had to live with, and by family, I mean like your parents or extended family. You had to have a spouse. You had to have kids. Now, kids were actually practical. Like if you live out on a farm and you have also all that fucking physical labor to do, you had to have kids to help work, Like people couldn't live on their own. And then you add the welfare state on top of that, making it even easier for anybody to live on their own. This has created that attitude that, yeah, my individual happiness is the most important thing in my life because I live by myself. So to hell with having kids with a husband or wife. They're only good if they make us happy and fulfilled. Yeah. You want to know when this attitude happened? Once we didn't need them anymore. So this whole myth that marriage is about love, that's a new thing. Like that's a modern thing that just came about. But it is so far from the truth. Like, no, like back in the day, once again, Your parents arranged your marriage based on politics and survival, basically. You ended up getting stuck with somebody that you may not have even fucking met until you were getting married, and you learned to live with them. You learned to love them. You were stuck with them. There was no easy way out like there is now. So all these couples learned to make it work. And to be fair, part of learning to make it work could have been agreeing to see other people. Like, you know what? I hate your guts. I know you hate my guts. Let's do our family duty and give our families an heir. And then we each go sleep around with other people. And then we'll come back home together and pretend to be a nice, happy family for optics. But when no one's looking, just stay the fuck away from me. Let's go screw whoever else we want. That was also an option. So you could basically not even be together anymore and still live together out of necessity. And if not, well, you're better off without them. Yeah. So this is the way we feel about our interpersonal relationships. If it doesn't make me happy, then I don't want it. Again, to be fair, even back then, that's probably the attitude people would have had if they weren't forced into these relationships. They were in relationships because they had to be for survival. So with this attitude, no wonder the divorce rate is so high. No wonder people who don't want to get married and have children anymore. We don't want to make sacrifices or endure unpleasant times for the sake of something greater. Well, there's also the fact that it's so easy to get a divorce. I just find it funny, like how quickly the religious groups cucked to this. So marriage is supposed to be a binding contract between you and God, basically. And they made it so easy to violate that. Oh, don't worry. God won't mind that you went back on your word. Yeah, you'll still get into heaven. You'll be fine. So it isn't only about women's choosing to be single. It's also about men choosing to abandon their children. It's about children refusing to care for aging parents. It's about parents neglecting their children. And also men choosing to be single as well. Don't forget that. Yeah, so that is a nice unintended side effect of female empowerment and sexual liberation. Men realized, I'm better off without them. Like, yeah, sure, go ahead, be empowered. Yeah, it's all about it's about all of us operating under the mindset where my happiness is the most important thing in my life at all times. Now, I wonder how many people who live by that philosophy truly leave this world in peace. I guess it depends. Like, do they die with their bucket list all fulfilled? If so, then they probably do live leave pretty peacefully. Probably live peacefully too, now that I think about it, but definitely leave. The modern society has driven us further away from the values and structures that truly bring fulfillment in life. You want to fix this? You're gonna have to introduce some hardships again. Now, interpersonal relationships are some of the few experiences in life that are truly meaningful to the human heart. While not everyone is necessarily called to a romantic partnership or marriage, we should not pretend the lack of a relationship is empowering. Once again, it depends on the individual. Like there are people like Isaac Newton and Nikola Tesla. Like Newton in particular never showed interest in relationships. So that, of course, led to the alphabet soup community claiming him as one of their own. He must have been gay. No, he didn't show interest in men either. So no, he cared about his work and nothing else. I don't know if he died if he was at peace when he died, but he sure as fuck left more of an impact on the world than most breeders do. So it all depends on the individual. Not everyone needs a relationship. Not everyone wants a relationship. If you're one of those who do, stop trying to force it on those who don't, and vice versa. Nor should we pretend that having a relationship is our ultimate purpose in life, and without it, we are only half a person. See, I told you, like, this article would be a lot more reasonable than most of the ones we cover along this vein, didn't I? So will 45% of women really be single by current year plus 7? I don't know. I would say there's a strong possibility of that myself. But if that's the case, it will be a symptom of the many challenges of modern dating and not something to celebrate. And even modern dating is a symptom of the challenges of modern society in general and what their values are. We'll see where this goes. My general opinion is the same as with most other things, like wokeness in the media, for example. Things will get better eventually, but they're going to get way worse before they get better. So bunker down. We're in for interesting times.